Nacho, John Madden, and the Yakimal Pueblo. The spot I usually go to when I want a really quiet place is the athletic field, a block down that way. But there were some guys hanging out there today, and I said, oh, I guess I must be needing more of a walk. So I came down here. And the day that started out gorgeous, not a cloud in the sky, is now overcast, but that supports the state I'm in, which is kind of down, not depressed. No, my energy is just kind of down, and I know why. I know very good reasons why. But the theme of this little talk, I think it's not going to be little. I don't even know. There's so much swimming around in my head about what goes up must come down that I'm not sure I can get it to sound coherent. But life says, push the button, I'll tell you what to say. It'll be useful somehow. So the scene where I'm at, it's a classically Mexican scene. Very old car still being used. Very, very old truck still being used. I know that truck. I know where they park it. I've been here 2 months in Acapulco. So you could say, oh, it's a shame that people in Mexico are so poor and they drive such shitty cars. Some of them got cars like that. They do for their families. So it's mixed pickles in this pueblo. Some people are more prosperous than others. But I think it's really wonderful that they keep all these rigs on the road that in America would be junked already because they don't buy so many cars. They don't consume so many cars. And in Mexico, lots of people who are poor anyway don't need cars because there's actually wonderful public transportation and very cheap taxis. And you don't need a car. So I wish psychiatrists, I really don't want to wish that my life was different because it's played out so beautifully. But it would be good for the world if psychiatrists understood the principle of what goes up must come down. Maybe they never heard that song, which 5 years off of psychotropic drugs, I'm remembering everything, including a song that I probably heard 20 years ago the last time. What goes up must come down. Spinning wheel, got to go round. Talk about your troubles, it's a crying sin. Ride a painted pony, let the spinning wheel turn. I don't remember what, I can look up on Genius what band that was. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I was trained next to psychiatrists at the big teaching hospital, Strong Memorial in Rochester. And I got to see the way they were trained. It was the late 60s, and we were battling our faculty because we didn't like labels. We didn't want to give diagnoses. And they were offering us 2 models of therapy, behaviorism or psychoanalysis, and we didn't like either of those. And we sought elsewhere, Carl Rogers, Abe Maslow, Fritz Perls. So we were battling with our faculty. But the psychiatry students, you could see their mentors showing them around saying, my son, and back then it was mostly my son, someday all this will be yours. And they were eager as can be just to gobble up whatever they were being fed. And what they were fed, even I was not taught about trauma in grad school. But psychiatrists really have never learned to think in terms of trauma. Michael Franti is smarter than all the psychiatrists. He sings, now I can't get the tune, but he says, separate yourself from the trauma, from the drama. We're all trying to heal life trauma. And that's the truth. That's the truth. Everybody has been traumatized in small and large ways. I'll attach a link to a video where I was interviewing a brilliant mural artist here a week and a half ago. And when she used the term depression to describe the battle she has with emotional pain, I said, can we just substitute the word pain? Depression is a psychiatric term. She lit up. She liked that a lot. Okay, good. Let's call it pain. I hope she caught that and stays with it. Because the psychiatrists, they invent these terms, depression. My definition of depression is sure going to be very different than theirs. It is not biochemical, except in very rare cases. Depression is the state you go into when you're struggling against your feelings. It's not a genuine feeling. It's the lack of feeling. And it comes because you don't have enough support or encouragement or anybody around you that knows you need to get some trauma out, so you stay stuck in it. And when I offered that to that girl, I said, trauma, you've been dealing with lots of trauma. She said, yeah, shit tons of trauma. Yeah. But when I had a perfect storm of life events after a life into my early 40s that was always characterized by enthusiastic, so many people would call me enthusiastic. And occasionally someone would say, you're just a little too intense for me. But I was wildly successful at AT&T back in the 80s, incredibly successful, and always had lots of energy until my early 40s, and did not mind taking 4 planes a week and spending most of my week in New Jersey until finally I realized my body was paying a terrible price. But I used to say, I eat stress for breakfast, as if it wasn't affecting me, but it was. So in my early 40s, I left AT&T, which had been very exciting, and Chicago, my home, which was very exciting, where I had a tremendous network of friends and lived right on the lake, to go to Cincinnati to be closer to my son in his teen years. Cincinnati was a very buttoned-down conservative town. It didn't fit me at all, as opposed to AT&T, where they really understood about career paths and developing people. I worked for the power company in Cincinnati, and their philosophy was teach them a job, hope that they'll stay there forever so we have no accidents. And in Cincinnati, I didn't have my friends around me, and being closer to my son did not make me feel better because I was saying goodbye to him twice a week instead of once a month. And it was right in my face that he still wasn't living with me. And in Cincinnati, my sex abuse memories came back, probably because in my early 40s, my energy was dropping some, and because I had no supports and I was suffering in so many other ways. Is this as blurry as it looks to me? I'm going to try to rub this camera here a little bit. Maybe it'll improve it. So that blew my life apart. As a psychologist used to working on myself and unearthing everything, the fact that those horrific memories of being raped at knife point, that was in there all that time, and you've never been aware of it. I started not trusting my own mind at all. It was devastating. And they took me to the psychiatrist, and there's a transpersonal psychologist, Stanislav Grof, who says when you experience that kind of falling apart, it's the chance to rework your life and find out who you really are. It's not about career. It's not even about family. It's about discovering who you genuinely are. And if there was a genuine spiritual teacher around, a shaman or somebody who really knew, they could coach you through that. But Groff says in our society, they take you to the modern witch doctors, the doctors and the psychiatrists, and they see only in terms of biochemistry, don't even ask about trauma, and put you on drugs which mostly are quite terrible, and they kind of don't take the side effects seriously. I had a wonderful psychiatrist, David Manley. Wow, that's 20 years ago, and the other day I couldn't come up with his last name. Dave Manley was a hell of a good guy. He would quote from Buddhist philosophers, and he was in a men's group. And he would talk straight to me. So when I went to him and said, my friend says to me that the reason I can't cry is probably, and crying has for a long time been really great release for me and very healing. I just can't do it anymore. She thinks it's the drugs. And Dave said, yeah, probably. Those mood stabilizers, they knock off your high end and they knock off your low end so you don't get suicidal, but they kind of blur everything in between. So he didn't say, yeah, you never get to be really alive, but if it keeps you from committing suicide, maybe you'll accept the bargain. And I did for another 7 years because I didn't want to do that to people. He also said, yeah, at best, they make you feel 5% better. Usually not more than that. So not much. And the side effects were desperate. At one point I said, I've been impotent for a year on that one drug, And it was a different psychiatrist who said, yeah, how long since you've had a partner? So what if your sexuality is gone? He didn't go, gee, that's kind of an important thing to people. So psychiatrists, I don't trust them at all. Run. What goes up must come down. They never asked to find out, do you have any history of depression? No, I never crashed before. I never would get depressed. I am prone to very high states. In New Orleans, Mardi Gras, and then especially the St. Pat's Parade, I went way high. Oh man, I got so happy, over the moon. And afterwards, I was tired. And in indigenous societies, they know that the sensitive people in the village who go high and have visions, you take care of them afterwards because they're going to be vulnerable. I wasn't depressed, I was just tired. So that's been helpful to know, oh yeah, that's me. And part of the reason I go so high so easily is because when I was sexually abused, I learned to leave my body. I dissociated. Survival. But it's got a downside that it's hard to stay grounded.